take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
CannabisRadio.com presents The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, this is great, man.
Well, on the earth.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
All right, good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Wednesday, December 16th, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us here for another 2 hours of the latest news, data, analysis, and information by, for, and about the cannabis community. We're winding up our final week here of 2015, our final few shows this week before we go off on a 2-week break for the holidays. So make sure you cram all this information in your head because you're going to have to do without for a couple of weeks. But we've got plenty of it to tell you about. We've been going over the 5 leading initiatives to legalize marijuana in California, Nevada, Arizona, Massachusetts, and Maine. And we're going to take a look at that Massachusetts initiative today. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up in the Radical Rant. That's a MPP-sponsored initiative called CRMLA, the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. Also on the show today, we'll be bringing you a interview that we conducted a couple of weeks ago, and I just feel this is so important, especially as we're moving into the college bowl season and the NFL playoffs. We've got Michael Sindrich from the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition joining us at 12:30 to discuss the upcoming movie Concussion that features Will Smith, playing the doctor who discovered chronic traumatic encephalopathy happening in the brains of NFL players, and how THC, medical marijuana, could help those players deal with the problems of concussion and brain injury. So that's coming up at 12:30, a very important interview. Also coming up on the show today, it's one of my favorite days today. The Monitoring the Future study came out. This is the study that asks 8th, 10th, and 12th graders across America their habits and perceptions when it comes to the use of drugs and alcohol. And we have got some fantastic data to share with you today in the drug war data mines. Everything pointing to marijuana legalization not having a deleterious effect on preventing youth from using marijuana and other drugs. Also on the show today and behind the headlines, we've got an update on the case of Robert Kimdichie. He's the defensive lineman for Ole Miss University, and he is denying the report that he was using synthetic marijuana when he crashed through a hotel window and fell 2 stories. We'll talk about that, and we will try to figure out what's going on in that particular case. But all of that comes after the Cannabis Radio News, and in our headlines today, brought to you from the Associated Press, we've got news from the federal government, the Congress continuing to protect states' rights to medical marijuana. We'll tell you how. Also, we've got the summary of what came out in the Monitoring the Future study that we're going to talk about in the drug war data mines. Also from the AP, Washington's Liquor and Cannabis Board says it will allow more pot shop licenses. We'll tell you how many. In Arkansas, there's been yet another rejection of a medical marijuana initiative. And in Palm Beach County, Florida, we'll tell you the results of their vote as to whether to decriminalize personal marijuana possession in Palm Beach County, Florida. Also coming up on the show today, we'll have our Toker Talk Radio. That's hour 2 here, and we'll take your calls at 971-533-7111. Make sure you check my Twitter feed at Radical Russ. I've sent out some graphs from that new Monitoring the Future study, as well as hyperlinks. I've made short links to all 5 of the marijuana legalization initiatives. I've done hyperlinked, reformatted copies of those initiatives. They're a lot easier to read. You can find them all by going to rad-r.us/MJ2016. We're back with the AP headline news right after this. Stick around.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
the son of a Polish immigrant who grew up in a Brooklyn tenement. He went to public schools, then college, where the work of his life began, fighting injustice and inequality, speaking truth to power. He moved to Vermont, won election and praise as one of America's best mayors. In Congress, he stood up for working families and for principle, opposing the Iraq War, supporting veterans. Now he's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system, funded by over 1 million contributions, tackling climate change to create clean energy jobs, fighting for living wages, equal pay, and tuition-free public colleges.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders, husband, father, grandfather, an honest leader, building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
It's time for the Cannabis Radio News. Covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Cannabis Radio News is now available exclusively at cannabisradio.com. Now your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This is Cannabis Radio News.
This is your Cannabis Radio News for Wednesday, December 16th, 2015. The Justice Department will continue to be prohibited from interfering in state medical marijuana laws under the new federal spending bill unveiled late Tuesday night. The compromise legislation includes a provision that is intended to prevent the department, including the Drug Enforcement Administration, from using funds to arrest or prosecute patients, caregivers, and businesses that are acting in compliance with state medical marijuana laws. In April 2015, a Justice Department spokesman told the Los Angeles Times that the department did not interpret the amendment as affecting cases involving individuals or businesses, but merely, quote, impeding the ability of states to carry out their medical marijuana laws, end quote. In October, a federal judge ruled that interpretation was inaccurate and that the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment prevents the department from taking action against individuals who are acting in compliance with state laws. However, provisions failed that would have granted pot shops access to banks and allowed doctors at the Department of Veterans Affairs to recommend medical marijuana to soldiers. Furthermore, lawmakers will continue to block Washington, D.C. from regulating pot. The results of an annual survey of U.S. middle and high school students released Wednesday invalidate claims that reforming marijuana laws and debating legalization will lead to increased marijuana use among teens. According to the Monitoring the Future survey sponsored by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, rates of daily marijuana use by 8th, 10th, and 12th graders, as well as monthly use by 12th graders, did not change from 2014 to 2015 and have remained unchanged since 2010. The rate of monthly marijuana use by 8th graders did not change in the past year, but has dropped significantly since 2010. The rate of monthly marijuana use by 10th graders appears to have dropped significantly from 2014 and 2010 to 2015. The survey also found a decline in the number of teens who perceive great risk in marijuana use, negating the theory that softening perceptions of harm will result in more teens using marijuana. Washington's Liquor and Cannabis Board says it will increase the maximum number of marijuana stores in the state to help serve those who use the drug for medical reasons. The board said Wednesday it intends to boost the number to 556 stores statewide, up from the previous cap of 334. Director Rick Garza says the goal is to help ensure patients have access to the products they need. State lawmakers earlier this year passed a measure to reconcile Washington's unregulated medical marijuana marketplace with its thoroughly regulated recreational system. Recreational stores can obtain an endorsement to sell products for medical use, and the board says 70% of existing stores have done so. The board says it plans to double the number of available retail licenses in 10 counties with some of the highest medical marijuana sales. It will increase the available licenses in the remaining counties by 75%. Arkansas Attorney General Leslie Rutledge has rejected a proposed constitutional amendment to legalize marijuana in Arkansas. The proposal by Mary Berry of Summit seeks to legalize the cultivation, production, sale, possession, and use of the cannabis plant and all products produced by the cannabis plant, including marijuana. Rutledge said in her rejection Tuesday that the ballot title is ambiguous. She writes that without clarifications on several structural issues and issues of intent, she cannot suggest any specific changes to make the proposed amendment acceptable for the ballot. This is the fourth time the Attorney General has rejected the proposal in the last 3 months, citing issues of ambiguities. From WPTV television in Florida, they report a 4-1 vote Tuesday. Palm Beach County followed in the footsteps of cities like West Palm Beach and Miami Beach and decriminalized marijuana. The ordinance doesn't legalize marijuana, it just reduces the penalties for those caught with it. It gives law enforcement an alternative. Rather than make an arrest, they can now give a $100 fine. Instead of paying the fine, the offender can choose to do 10 hours of community service. The ordinance only covers offenders 18 and older, and an offender can receive a maximum of 2 citations. The county commission says between 2010 and 2014, more than 7,500 cases in the county involved possession of 20 grams of marijuana or less. In 90% of those cases, the person involved ended up in the jail. The remaining 10% received a citation or a notice to appear. This has been your Cannabis Radio News for Wednesday, December 16th, 2015. I'm Russ Belville. Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Cannabusiness 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp. NewEraCPAs.com, with years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
Welcome back. As you know, yesterday we brought you a sports story from the world of NCAA football where Ole Miss defensive lineman and projected top 5 NFL draft pick Robert Kimdichie was in the hospital or had suffered a fall, basically, from a hotel in Atlanta where he broke through a double-paned glass window and plummeted 15 feet onto a bush that was nearby. And had he not hit the bush, he probably would have gotten more severely injured. Following that report, it was said that there were 7 marijuana blunts found in his room. The newest reports are telling us that it's 12 marijuana blunts that were found in his room. The possession of marijuana charge in the state of Georgia takes up to, I believe it's a 30-gram charge, or maybe just an ounce. And 12 blunts are probably going to be below that. So he would be facing a misdemeanor charge. But later, after the initial report, the Outkick the Coverage blog at Fox Sports reported, Clay Travis was the reporter, who said he had numerous sources reporting that Robert Kimdichie had that reaction after ingesting synthetic marijuana, aka Spice or K2. Well, now the latest update is that Robert Kimdichie has released a statement, and according to the statement, he says, "I want to apologize to Rebel Nation, my teammates, and my coaches for my actions last weekend. I made a mistake and put myself in an environment that does not reflect who I am as a person. Contrary to a report by Fox Sports, I did not use synthetic drugs. I realize the dangers of drugs and alcohol and regret the lapse in judgment. This does not reflect the core values that my mother and father instilled in our family. I'm a very spiritual person and drugs have no place in my belief system. As I move forward, I have learned a valuable lesson about the ramifications of a bad decision. I've worked very hard to have this platform, and I want to use it in the right way and be a role model for young players. I'm sorry for putting Coach Freeze in this position and will accept whatever consequences are necessary, but my hope is to finish this year's journey with my brothers." End quote. Now, his denial of using synthetic marijuana, we can take that at face value. And if we do, we've got to ask ourselves, what the hell is going on with these young men who are using marijuana in hotels and then jumping off the balconies? This is unlike any reaction to marijuana I've ever heard of in my life. And if he was just using smoked marijuana, it's even more difficult to understand. In the case of Levi Tamba, the young man, the 19-year-old who jumped off the balcony 14 floors in Denver, at least we understand that he was using edible cannabis. And with edibles, you can get a whole lot in you before you recognize what the effects are going to be. If Kimdichi was just smoking marijuana, it's hard to understand how he could have gotten to the point where he'd have been suffering those kind of reactions. Now, we can also take a cynical view on this. Georgia has signed, as of 2012, a new law was signed in Georgia making the possession of synthetic marijuana a felony in that state. Now, if I were facing a misdemeanor marijuana charge and the possibility of not being able to play in the Sugar Bowl because I got caught with marijuana, and the punishment for marijuana is a misdemeanor, but the punishment for synthetic marijuana is a felony, I might be tempted to tell people that I wasn't using synthetic marijuana and instead using regular marijuana. It's possible. We'll have to see what comes out of the hospital if they're going to be testing for any of the metabolites of synthetic marijuana. That's not usually done. Hospitals are usually testing for the metabolites of the standard drugs. But it would be hard for me to believe he would lie about such a thing when the hospital would have his blood and could run subsequent tests to determine whether or not he is lying. Of course, the folks at Project Sam and all of the anti-drug people are jumping up and down about this, saying, yet again, we see another case where someone's use of marijuana has led to psychotic symptoms, and claiming this proves that our statements that marijuana is harmless are false. Well, folks, nobody here has ever said that marijuana is harmless, and I've been very careful about pointing out that people with pre-existing mental conditions should probably be warned off of using cannabis. No mind-altering substance is harmless. None of them are. But what we keep underscoring is that marijuana is far safer than alcohol, and it's far safer than the synthetic cannabinoids that have been marketed as Spice or K2, and that sometimes these athletes and soldiers take to try to avoid the drug test.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
All right, happy 420, everybody in the Mountain Time Zone, and big shout out to my little brother Matt, who's still battling the cancer. We're going to go visit him this weekend, and we'll see how he's doing. Surgery is coming up, but he's hanging in there. Stay tough, Matty Kachoo. We'll be there soon. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz.
The Russ Belville Show, providing dictionaries to drug czars since 2009.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining. Welcome back, everybody. In the Drug War Data Mines today, we're taking a look at the latest information, the 2015 edition of the Monitoring the Future survey. This is an annual survey that's been conducted since 1975, so we're talking about the 40th anniversary of this survey. And it asks 8th, 10th, and 12th graders their experience with the use of drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, and their perceptions about drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes. And the best news that we've got coming out of this survey is showing that not only has marijuana legalization not led to more use of marijuana or drugs by the 8th, 10th, and 12th graders, it's actually seen some declines in the use of drugs. Also, we are seeing record low, 40-year lows in the use of alcohol and cigarettes by 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. All the news coming from Monitoring the Future is good and points to the fact that marijuana legalization is doing exactly what we predicted it would do. The doom and gloom from Project Sam and all the anti-legalization pot prohibitionists out there are being proven false. Let's start with a look at lifetime drug use. This would be whether or not a kid has ever tried any drugs. Any drugs. And when it comes to any drug use, we have seen a decline in the past 5 years of between 4 and 6% for the 10th graders and a tiny 1.5% increase for the 12th graders. But when we take a look at what those drugs are aside from marijuana, if you take marijuana out of the equation, have kids ever tried drugs that aren't pot? You know the gateway theory? It's down. It is down for all the grades, 8th, 10th, and 12th. Down 3% for the 8th graders, down 13% for the 10th graders, down 15% for the 12th graders. Also, for the use of drugs, those numbers, 14.6% for 10th graders and 21% for the 12th graders, are the lowest figures ever recorded in the past 40 years. So again, the idea of the gateway theory is false. Kids are not turning to other drugs. They're turning to other drugs less. But is the access to marijuana increasing the use of marijuana among the kids? That too is a no. What we are seeing in 2015 is a 10% decline over the past 5 years for the 8th graders, a 7% decline for the 10th graders, but a 2% increase for the 12th graders. There are slightly more 12th graders that are using marijuana in 2015 as compared to 2010. Then when we look at alcohol and cigarettes, the numbers for all grades, 8th, 10th, and 12th, for both alcohol and cigarettes, are the lowest ever recorded. Fewer kids are trying alcohol or trying cigarettes in their lifetime than ever before. And keep in mind that we're talking about 12th graders down to 64%. Less than 2/3 of 12th graders have tried alcohol compared to the all-time max of 93%. We've gone from 93% to 64% on alcohol. And when it comes to 12th graders trying cigarettes, we've gone from 75%, almost 76%, down to 31%. Fewer than 1/3 of 12th graders have tried cigarettes. Fewer than 2/3 of 12th graders have tried alcohol. But what about the monthly use? The kids that are using it regularly, so to speak. Well, those numbers are down too. When it comes to the monthly use of any drug, they are down among all age groups. When it comes to the monthly use of drugs that are not marijuana, they are down among all age groups. When it comes to the use of marijuana, it is down among all age groups in the past 5 years. And keep in mind, it's these past 5 years that our opponents have said, oh, since Prop 19 in 2010. We're talking about weed. We're talking about legalization. We legalize in 2012 and 2014. That'll affect the kids. They'll think marijuana's okay. They'll use it more. Hasn't happened. Monthly use of marijuana by all grades is down. As is the use of alcohol and the use of cigarettes, again, at the lowest recorded levels ever, except for 8th grade alcohol, which is slightly up from last year's all-time low. And then even when we get to the daily use of marijuana is down over the past 5 years. The daily use of alcohol down over the past 5 years. The daily use of cigarettes down over the past 5 years amongst all these grades. And yet, when we ask them about their perception, that is, how dangerous do they think it is, they think the risk of using marijuana is less dangerous than they've ever thought. So even as the kids think that marijuana is less dangerous, it's not leading them to use more marijuana, contrary to what our opponents have said. And the killer stat, for the first time in 40 years of asking high school seniors, fewer than 80% say that it is easy or fairly easy to access marijuana. It's harder for kids to access marijuana after legalization than ever before. These numbers prove without a doubt over the past 5 years that the fears of our prohibitionist opponents, that the legalization and the relaxation of marijuana laws across the nation would lead to rampant drug use, rampant marijuana use by our youth, are not borne out by the data. I've got links to all of this data and some handy charts to help you make the arguments, available on my feed at Radical Russ on Twitter. Make sure you check it out. Coming up next, football fans, stick around. Michael Sindrich from the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition is up with us, talking about the risk of concussion from football and how THC can help.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while and share.
Your connection to quality cannabis insurance services is spelled K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R. That's Karcher Insurance. We have worked with ventures like cannabis for over 60 years. We're proud to represent over 50 companies with tailor-made cannabis plans for owners just like you to insure your product, your plants, and your pursuits. K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R spells out their full-service insurance services ranging from commercial to bonds to personal, from life to health, and more. Contact the team at KarcherInsurance.com and let our experience work for you. That's K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R Insurance.com.
Contact Karen and the team at Karcher Insurance at 1-844-421-3560. That's 844-421-3560.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
Welcome back, everyone. 31 after the hour, and today we get to talk about two things that are near and dear to my heart. That's marijuana and football. And joining me to discuss the issue is the founder of the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition, Michael Sindrich, joins us by telephone. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Good. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic, and I got to tell you, the last event where I saw you, I think it was the Southwest Cannabis Conference and Expo down there in Phoenix, and you had Kyle Turley, Nate Jackson, Ricky Williams discussing this issue. Give folks an idea what the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition is all about.
Sure. Yeah, we also actually had Evan Britton on the panel as well. He's one of our more recent individuals that joined our organization and joined the fight. Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. We are an organization dedicated to the advancement of medical cannabis and the research of cannabis with regards to treating sports-related injuries, specifically brain injuries. And we've been at it for about 6 months now, attending events, raising awareness. We are in the process of putting together some research trials with some of the players we're working with. So really, we're just doing whatever we can to progress the science, progress the medicine, provide an alternative treatment for current and former players, and hopefully, in the end, change the NFL's substance abuse policy.
We've got a lot of evidence coming in now scientifically that shows how THC can help in the regeneration of brain cells and protection from the concussive trauma, the traumatic brain injury that these players are suffering from. But before we got any of that evidence, why did some players like Ricky Williams want to use cannabis?
Well, I think many of them weren't realizing that they were using it for medicinal purposes. I think that they were using cannabis. They know that it made them feel good. It helped with some of the injuries and some of the other issues that they were having. And they were just using it to generally feel good, because when you're putting your body through what these guys put their bodies through, you generally don't feel good after practices or after games. And I think that it has as science has progressed and the movement has progressed, it's become a legitimate medicine. And now we're seeing, hey, you may have been using it to just feel good, but really what you were doing is you were using it as a medicine, and you were probably substituting cannabis for other pharmaceuticals or other products you could have been using. And it's great to see. It's great to see something like cannabis and other natural holistic medicines being used by these players, especially because the pharmaceutical industry really has been failing them.
Yeah, and there's no doubt to the level of pharmaceutical use that is rampant in the NFL and other sports leagues, especially contact sports leagues. I'm a Packers fan, so I remember the days when Brett Favre was battling his painkiller addiction. And speak a little bit about that aspect of this, how the pharmaceutical industry, like you said, is failing these players.
Yeah, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you or any of the listeners this, but painkiller overdose deaths are down in states where medical cannabis is legal. And these guys, and many of them are being put on whether it's Vicodin, Oxy, the morphine, the different shots that they're getting in the locker room so they can just get back out on the field. I mean, pain is something that these guys are dealing with on a regular basis. So when it comes to the option when you have this pain, it's to use substances that are oftentimes extremely addictive, and that really the more that you use, the more that you need, and it just sends them on a downward spiral. And then you take, besides the pain-related issues, you look at some of the other medicines that they've taken. As far as what Kyle Turley will tell you, he's taken everything from muscle relaxers to antidepressants, antipsychotic medications, and he started seeing some things later in life that now we know are a direct result, in part because of the pharmaceuticals, but also because of his brain injuries. And the medicines that they were giving him for some of these issues were actually creating worse symptoms than what he was having before. He was getting to a point where he was getting suicidal, he was getting homicidal, and he blames that in part on the pharmaceuticals that he was being given.
My goodness. All right, we're speaking with Michael Cindrich from the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. You can find him on Twitter at GridironCan, C-A-N-N. And what's your website, Michael?
GridironCannabis.com.
Okay, GridironCannabis.com. Now, coming out this Christmas season, there's a movie that delves into the NFL and their covering up of concussion-related injuries and damages. I think the movie's called Concussion. And the NFL recently had a 9-figure settlement in a concussion lawsuit. Do you think this is going to propel the NFL toward recognition of medical cannabis, or are they just going to hold off until the feds say something?
I think this will be part of what pushes them towards recognizing cannabis as a treatment. What we've seen with the NFL is they are very influenced by the public views and public perceptions. And I think that this is not only going to change the NFL's view of cannabis and of concussions, but I think it will change the public, their view in many cases. And one thing is that it was supposed to come out around Christmas. The last I saw, I believe the release date got pushed back till the Friday after Super Bowl. It kind of makes you wonder if that had something to do with marketing by Sony, or if there was maybe some NFL influence there that caused them to say, hey, this is going to create some issues, and we're going to have to answer a lot of questions. And, maybe it made more sense for them to pressure Sony to release that after the Super Bowl. Again, I don't know, but it is a little suspicious that date's been moved.
Now, are you guys at Gridiron Cannabis Coalition planning any sort of educational campaigns in the stead? Maybe leading up to Super Bowl, throughout the playoffs, handing out flyers, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we haven't specifically, we're not working with Sony or with the movie, but as far as what we're doing, we're gearing up for the Super Bowl. We're planning on doing some events in Northern California. It just happens to be in Northern California this year. So we're planning on doing some events to both promote our cause and the treatment of these players and utilizing cannabis as a treatment, and also to just to promote the legalization movement in general, because we feel that we need these laws to change, and we're just as happy seeing full-on adult use recreational legalization, because that's what allows access. That's what allows the ability to study and to be able to use all of these different products. So we're fully supportive of all of these measures, and we're really gearing up to the Super Bowl and trying to do as much as possible between now and then.
I would also think for a lot of these players, having to get on some sort of medical cannabis registry might be troublesome from a privacy perspective, and they might prefer recreational legalization where they don't have to sign up for anything.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and especially if it's a current player who doesn't want the league to know what they're doing and that they're using cannabis. So,
is it too much to think that someday in my lifetime I'm going to see volcano vaporizers on the sideline for a guy that just got his bell rung, or are we really just looking at taking it off of the controlled substances testing list and turning a blind eye if players are using it?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see volcano vaporizers on the sidelines, but we may see some chambers in the locker room where they can go in and get a certain vapor. Maybe it's non-psychoactive. Maybe there's CBD water, other CBD products that end up being utilized. But really, I think part of what we would like to see is the medicine to move beyond, which it already is moving beyond just people who are smoking or vaping. We see the opportunities. There may be patches. There may be any number of different products that these guys can use, that they can use on the sideline, that they might even be able to use, if they have a patch on while they're playing, so that you get your bell rung. You already have something going on with your brain. It's almost a second helmet that is protecting you from the effects of that hit.
Now, are you working primarily at affecting the NFL, or do you also have some influence toward NCAA football?
Well, our focus right now has been on the NFL because of the players that we're working with. It's our opinion that if we can effectuate change with the NFL, that it will trickle down through college, high school, middle school, midget football, and then other sports as well. Because we believe that, really it's not just a football issue. And these are athletes who are looking and who need, looking for, and they actually need treatment for these different injuries that they're sustaining as a result of playing these sports. And it's about the medicine. It's about giving them these alternative treatments, not forcing prescriptions on them when there are these other products that may help them. But really, yeah, we're talking to people in multiple sports right now. We've been contacted by professional surfers, former NBA players, MMA individuals that are in mixed martial arts. So, really, this isn't just a football issue. This is an issue for all sports and all athletes, and especially sports that have, that are contact sports.
Yeah, and it's, this first came up, when we had that recent Super Bowl, Seattle versus Denver. And the joke was, both teams play in states where marijuana is legal. And now medical marijuana, I think at least, 13 or 14 teams in the league live in a state or play in a state where medical marijuana is legal. Are you looking at maybe restricting it to just those states where medical marijuana is legal, or by taking it off the controlled substances testing list, I guess it would affect all the states?
Yeah, I think it would affect all of the states. I mean, really, these players are going to states on a fairly regular basis, even if they're not living in those states where it is legal. And if they can gain access to it, I mean, some of them may choose to live in those states just so they can have their medicine. They may have to travel for practice or live in the city where their team resides during the season. But many of them would choose to live elsewhere. And, really, I think it's taking it off of the NFL's controlled substance list and allowing any players to use it. And again, we don't want players breaking laws in states where it's illegal, but if they're in states where it is legal and they test positive the next day, in their state, it shouldn't be an issue.
It's Michael Sindrich from the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. You can check out more about them at gridironcannabis.com. They're on Twitter at gridironcan, C-A-N-N. You can follow them out there. And final question, Michael, is there any strain out there that can fix the Green Bay Packers offense?
I don't know about that. If you talk to Kyle, he'll tell you that Jack will fix just about anything for him. But I don't know about that Green Bay offense. I think it's going to take a lot more than that.
I think you're right. Damn it. All right. Michael Sindrich, thanks for joining us here on the Russ Belville Show. Good luck with all your work, and we look forward to seeing what you got ready for the Super Bowl. We'll make sure to hype it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That's a replay of the Michael Sindrich interview that we conducted earlier this month. Check out the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. You can find them online by just Googling Gridiron Cannabis. Stay tuned. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss the Massachusetts Crimla initiative, the campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol. That's coming up next. Not against someone else's.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. The Russ Belville Show, the National Wildlife Refuge for Marijuana Unicorns.
This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay. Read the Weed Blog today.
The Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com, the National Wildlife Refuge for Marijuana Unicorns.
MJWellness.com, the largest medical marijuana community in the world. Connect with thousands of patients, doctors, industry leaders, and businesses through shared personal experiences along our worldwide network. Discover new therapies and benefits with content tailored to you. Come grow your network on MJWellness.com. You're not alone. Your wellness matters. Learn, live, and thrive. Check out MJWellness.com today.
Must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make room.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant.
We're continuing our look at the 5 states likely to legalize marijuana in 2016. We've already covered the California Legalization Initiative, the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. That's the so-called Sean Parker Initiative that's been recently amended. We've also covered the Marijuana Policy Project's 4 amendments in Nevada, Arizona, Massachusetts, and Maine. We've already done the Nevada one, and reminder, that one's actually on the ballot. We will see a vote in Nevada in 2016. We tackled the Arizona one yesterday, so today we've got Massachusetts on deck. All of these MPP initiatives are known as CRIMLA, the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. And remember, on Friday, our guest on the show will be Mason Tvert from the Marijuana Policy Project, and we'll discuss all 4 of these CRIMLA initiatives. I got a few questions for him about all of them. But today we'll take a look at Massachusetts, the Bay State, which passed decriminalization in 2008, medical marijuana in 2012, and is now poised to go 3 for 3 to get the hat trick in 2016 to pass marijuana legalization. The Bay State Repeal, which was the grassroots organization, has folded their initiative. They did not gather enough signatures. The MPP initiative feels like it's gathered enough signatures, turned them in, and in Massachusetts, it goes before the legislature first, and the legislature has a choice to just go ahead and put it on the ballot, or if they don't do that, MPP can go out and get another 10,000 or so signatures and force it to be placed on the ballot. As these MPP criminals go, I think this one is probably the best of the lot. With personal possession and cultivation, adults 21 and older can possess up to an ounce of marijuana in public, and up to 5 grams of that can be concentrate. So it's 28 grams total. So if you got 5 grams concentrate on you can only have 23 grams of flour in addition to that. So it's not an ounce plus 5 grams. It's 28 grams total. 5 of it can be concentrates. But the CRIMLA here for Massachusetts also allows you to possess up to 10 ounces at home. Now, the Massachusetts CRIMLA also gives people the right to cultivate 6 marijuana plants with a maximum of 12 plants per household and possess the results of the harvest. But that's on top of the 10 ounces you're allowed to possess at home. And this is a critical distinction, because we've got other states that are passing these laws that say you can grow plants and possess the harvest, but you can only possess the harvest if you're growing plants. So in this one, you can possess the harvest from your plants, and on top of that, possess another 10 ounces. So that appears to me to be the most expansive of any of these CRIMLA initiatives as far as personal possession goes. And like the other CRIMLAs, it allows you to have an ounce of cannabis in an edible or in a liquid. So unlike Washington and Oregon, where we say you can have a pound of edibles and 72 ounces of liquids, they say you can have an ounce of marijuana in the liquid or the edible, but it doesn't matter what the liquid or the edible weighs. So you could have, 40 pounds of marijuana brownies, so long as you only used 1 ounce of marijuana in those 40 pounds of brownies. They'd be pretty damn weak brownies, right? Now, this is interesting to me because I think from a law enforcement perspective, they would prefer the Oregon-Washington law because it's a bright line. I catch you with a pan of brownies, I weigh them. If it's less than a pound, you're fine. But if I catch you with a pan of brownies in Massachusetts, how am I going to know how much weed went into that pan of brownies? That might be a better law for the consumer as far as being able to get away with having more edibles or liquids. And of course, the cannabis plants and the marijuana possession must be out of public view. Now, there are still some illegal acts that are defined in the Massachusetts CRIMLA. Cultivation in public view gets you a $300 fine, civil fine, not criminal. The Massachusetts CRIMLA is interesting in that as part of its possession at home, you're required to keep it locked up. And you can be fined for not doing that. If you leave your marijuana unlocked at home, you can get a $100 fine. Now, I don't know how that would happen. But I suppose if there's some other case where they're dealing with you in your home and they see unlocked marijuana, that's where the fine would kick in. You also can't smoke in public, or you can't smoke where there's any no smoking sign. That's also a $100 fine. There's going to be an open container law, and if you have an open container of marijuana in your vehicle, you'll get a civil fine of $500 unless you put your container in the trunk or in a locked glove compartment. Now, there's been some controversy about these open container laws that are happening. California, hell, I got Stoners Against Legalization in California there saying it's terrible because medical marijuana patients won't be able to smoke weed in a moving car. Folks, I don't know if you can pass an initiative that allows people to smoke weed in a moving car. That'd be the first thing our opponents would attack, and they would get some traction on that. So I think we better just get used to the fact there's going to be open container laws, and the point of them is to prevent people from smoking in a moving car. Because how do you prevent someone from smoking in the car? You'd have to actually see them smoking. You'd have to catch them with a smoldering joint. But to be able to catch someone with an open container takes the place of having to prove they were actually smoking. I think this is a compromise we're just going to have to accept and learn to live with, because trying to argue for the right to smoke weed in a moving car is not going to get anywhere politically. But I think this Massachusetts criminal does it the best by allowing it to be in a locked glove compartment. That's going to be so helpful for so many people. Now, if you possess or cultivate, they've also done some decriminalization here, similar to what we did in Oregon. If you possess or cultivate more than you're allowed, but less than twice the legal limit, you get a $100 fine and forfeiture of the excess, right? So if they catch you in public with 1.5 ounces on you, you get a $100 fine and they take half of an ounce. You still get to keep your legal ounce. If you're growing 9 plants, they're going to give you a $100 fine, take 3 of your plants. And if you're a person under 21 trying to access marijuana, that's a $100 fine, whether you got a fake ID or you're trying to get an adult to buy it for you, $100 fine and mandatory drug awareness program. Now, what about consumer rights? Here is where I believe the Massachusetts criminal is going further than any other law. Landlords can still ban tenants from cultivating and smoking marijuana on their properties, but they can't ban the possession, and they can't ban non-smoked cannabis. So you can still have edibles and apparently vaporization. Employers can still ban pot smoking at work, but it specifically in this law says pot smoking. It's the consumption of marijuana specifically that they're banning, and I think this is being left open for some wiggle room to be able to possibly allow on-site consumption at some of these employers, especially in a medical sense. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Parental custody and visitation rights are protected. You can't lose custody or have your visitation rights taken or be denied adoptions or any of that kind of stuff simply because you're a marijuana consumer. Same goes for necessary medical procedures, including organ transplants, that cannot be denied solely for marijuana use. This is so critical and needs to happen in every other legalization state. There's no reason someone's use of marijuana should end up being a death sentence because they can't get a liver transplant. Now, in Massachusetts, they will create a Cannabis Control Commission. It'll regulate all marijuana in the state, including medical. And it's got an interesting clause where it is directed specifically to encourage industry participation for people of color. This is something that's been called for by Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of people in the marijuana movement, and that is, the drug war disproportionately impacted, black people and Latino people and destroyed their neighborhoods. So as we legalize and the revenues are being generated, we should give back and we should try to revitalize those communities. That's what Massachusetts will be doing. Also, this Cannabis Control Commission can create new licenses, including pot lounge licensing, on-site consumption, special event licensing, which means possibly open smoking areas at the Boston Freedom Rally, as if there aren't now, and research licensing. And they can also restrict advertising. The tax at the retail shops in Massachusetts will be 3.75% at the point of sale, plus a potential 2% local tax. So we're talking 5.75% marijuana taxes. That would be the lowest marijuana taxes in the nation. And the taxes do not apply to medical marijuana. Medical dispensaries and commercial retail shops can co-locate, and local residents can petition for the right to establish a pot lounge. There will be a maximum of just 75 retail shops in the state of Massachusetts, at least until October 2018, and then there can be more. The licenses cost $3,000 non-refundable application fee compared to the $5,000 in the other criminals. It's $15,000 for a cultivator, manufacturer, or retail license. It's $10,000 for a tester license. Licensees have to meet the same standards it takes to get an alcohol license, except marijuana convictions won't bar you from getting a license. There can be an absolute cap on marijuana cultivation statewide. And again, a maximum of 75 manufacturers until October 2018, and a maximum of 75 cultivators until October 2019. Licensees must be 500 feet from schools. The existing medical marijuana industry gets priority in licensing until 2018. If they haven't come up with pot shops by 2018, the existing dispensaries get to serve all adults, very similar to what we did here in Oregon. And as far as local control, the localities can regulate the time, place, and manner, but no more restrictively than how medical marijuana is regulated. The localities can limit the number of establishments, but any ban or any limit that's less than 20% of the liquor licenses, or any limit that's less than the number of medical establishments, has to be approved by voters. And localities can establish nuisance ordinances to restrict cultivation and to restrict signage. So looking at the big picture here of the marijuana legalization initiatives, out of the 5 proposed so far, it looks to me like the Massachusetts Crimla initiative may be the best of the 5. Now, on tomorrow's show, we're going to cover the Maine initiative. That's language that comes from Legalize Maine, but is being backed by the Marijuana Policy Project, and I believe it's got some pretty liberal language as well. We may be looking at a situation where by 2017, the Northeast, and not the West Coast, has the most liberal marijuana legalization in the United States. But whatever the legalization is, it beats prohibition. Make sure you get involved. If these are happening in any of your states, get involved. With the California one, I'm not exactly sure who to send you to at this point, but with the Massachusetts, Maine, Arizona, and Nevada, they all have websites available. It's usually regulate marijuana in, and then the state name, or just regulate the state name. But if you type in regulate marijuana like alcohol and the name of your state, it should take you to the campaign website. You'll be able to find that. Get involved, volunteer your time, tell everybody legalization always trumps prohibition. From beautiful legal Portland, Oregon, and for all the people here at CannabisRadio.com, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.